First, an introductory edition of our exciting and impactful. Hello there, and welcome to the first and introductory edition of our exciting and impactful program titled Aligning Education Reforms with National Development. I'll take that again, Aligning Education Reforms with National Development. This is Armourgate Radio Communications, and I'm your host on this program. My name is Daniel Adebiyi, and I'm so delighted to have you join us as we launch into this important conversations about the future of education and its vital connection to the growth and prosperity of nations. So, in this program, we'll explore the critical need for countries, especially the countries in Africa and other developing regions. We're looking at the need for them to align educational reforms with their national development agenda, how there must be an alignment with the various reforms. Educational reforms must be done in tandem and in alignment with their national development goals and agenda. We'll also be asking key questions like, what kind of education produces problem solvers? We'll be asking what kind of education produces innovators. We'll be also asking what kind of education produces leaders. We just mentioned innovators, leaders, and we also mentioned problem solvers, and this is just speaking to the quality of individuals within the society. So to summarize these three questions, what kind of education or educational structure produces quality individuals? Because one of the things that is constant, in developed countries is the quality of individuals, the quality of citizens they have. They have citizens that are responsible, citizens that are effective and are able to contribute effectively to the nation. Thereby, they are able to fulfill their own quota in national development, because a nation can be developed beyond or above its systems or above the quality of people, the quality of citizens it has. Furthermore, we would also be looking at how our curriculum can reflect. How can our curriculum reflect? We'll be looking at asking that question. How can our curriculum reflect the realities of today's world? And not just the realities of today's world. We're not just looking at today. We're not just aligning curriculums for today, but also for the future that we hope to build, the future that we envisage, the future that we are looking forward to. From policy shifts to structural adjustments, we'll be looking at how education must evolve and how it needs to evolve, how education needs to evolve. We're looking at some policy implementations that has happened in the past and how it's brought and yielded great results within the educational system, and also how it translated to contributing to the overall national growth. We're looking at how education needs to evolve, to meet the demands of a rapidly changing and evolving global landscape. And so those are the things we'll be looking at in this program. And furthermore, we'll be exploring and examining the successful case studies from around the world. We'll be looking at case studies from countries such as Finland. We'll be looking at Finland's emphasis on creativity and well-being in school, and how this reform, or how the various reforms that went in this line actually translated to contributing to the overall agenda, or contributing to their national development. We'll also be looking at another country, very interesting country. It's called Singapore. We'll be looking at Singapore's focus on skill-based and future-ready learning. In fact, Singapore has a system of continuous learning till the age of 65 years. The citizens can learn, they can learn skills, be empowered, they can, take courses and everything. They have that structure on ground, so they have a structure of future-ready learning, even as long as people want it. So they have that system, and of course, it's, they have people that are educated. In fact, Singapore is one of the countries with the highest number of literate people, basically. So we would also be looking at another interesting African country called Rwanda. We're looking at Rwanda's commitment to ICT-driven education. And them going for ICT-driven education was actually a tool for post-conflict rebuilding. Remember the conflict, the genocide that happened in Rwanda, and how it affected the nation negatively, and how their systems collapsed drastically. So in order for them to rebuild, for us post-conflict rebuilding, they had to implement ICT-driven education, and that has helped them over time. And in fact, even till now, they're still exploring that ICT-driven educational system, and that's yielded great results. These examples and even more examples we'll be looking at even in the future in the course of this program is a testament and a proof to the fact that educational reforms are not only possible, but they are also powerful. They are potent. They have great effects, overall effect. When they are intentional, and when they are tied to national goals, when they are aligned to national goals, then they can yield great results. So as we journey on through this series, through the programs, the various conversations we have on this program, you can be sure to look forward to engaging conversations with educators, with everyday citizens who are passionate about education. We would also be spotlighting innovative ideas. We'll be spotlighting grassroots initiatives and other practical solutions that can work even in our local context. So quickly, before we go further, I would like to just give us a breakdown of the various topics we'll be exploring in this quarter, and just for us to understand and just for us to have an idea of the direction we are taking and what you should also be expecting in the coming weeks. So number one, we'll be looking at the role of education in driving national growth. We'll be looking at how education plays a pivotal role in achieving national development, and we will see it as one of the key secrets to developed countries. I would also be looking at policy reforms. We're looking at how to reshape educational frameworks for a competitive economy. Number three, we're looking at private-public partnership in education. We're looking at the need for a partnership between the public sector and the private sector to yield good education, for education to be a game changer, and also to ensure sustainable development. There must be a partnership between the public sector and the private sector, and this partnership comes to play a lot of times in various countries, developing countries, even developed countries. I wanted to say in countries like Japan, countries like China, Singapore, Finland, Germany. So these countries, you can see a lot of private-public partnerships within the educational sector. Number four, we'll also be looking at technology and digital learning. As we know, the world technology is the order of the day, and the world has gone digital. So looking at digital and technology learning, and this is actually the future of education, especially for national growth. The kind of education that other nations or developed nations are exploring is more of digital, and also they've infused a lot of technologies within their educational system, and it's basically to get more results and get better results. Number five, we would also be looking at STEM and technical education as catalysts for national progress. Number six, we're looking at inclusive education. We're looking at the need for nations to ensure that no one is left out. No one is left out in education, and no one is also left out in national development. How citizens have to be involved and to be engaged in national development. And how can they be involved? How can they be engaged? Is through education. Engage them by providing quality education for them, empowering them, so that they'll be able to be inclusive, and so that they'll also be able to contribute to national development. Number 7, we would also be looking at some global best practices. We'll be looking at countries from around the world that have successfully aligned education with national development goals. Like I said, we're looking at case studies from Germany, from Singapore, from Finland, from Japan, from the United States of America, from the United Kingdom. We're looking at case studies from those nations, and we would also see how, if it's possible for them, how it can also be possible for African countries and other developing countries. Number 8, we'll be looking at the need to bridge the gap, how there is a cogent need for there to be an alignment with the curriculum taught in schools and in institutions, aligning curriculum with industry and workforce needs. The needs in the workforce and also the needs in the industry, ensuring that people are educated to be empowered to be able to meet the needs in various industries and in various workforce, basically. We will also be looking at entrepreneurial education, how to also prepare people not just to become employees, but also to become employers of labor. Job creation, how people can come up with profitable enterprises that would also be able to contribute to national development. So we'll be looking at that. I will also be assessing educational outcomes, be measuring success beyond examination scores, because educational success is far more than examination scores. We'll be looking at reforming teacher training and development of a future-ready workforce within the educational system. Training teachers, training the workforce of teachers within the educational system, developing them in order for them to also be able to invest in students, in other people, and empower them to also to be future ready for what lies ahead in the future. We're also looking at funding for education, educational funding for national growth, and how countries can invest, strategies for sustainable investment in the educational sector. We'll be looking at that. We'll also be looking at, in fact, as in the case of funding, there are some countries that allocate 8% to 10% of their yearly budgets to education, and that shows their intentionality to education. And finally, we'll be looking at the role of civic education in shaping responsible and engaged citizens. We are not just, the goal of education is not just to have informed citizens, but also to have citizens who are responsible and citizens who can also engage and also be active within the society. So let us just sit back and stay tuned as we reimagine education as more than a system, because education is the foundation for our future and is also a strategic pillar in driving national development. So these are the various topics, those are the various topics we'll be exploring, and I want to encourage you to please stay tuned and join us every week on this platform. So quickly, today is just for an introduction. We're basically introducing the topic, the focus for the quarter, which is aligning education reforms with national development. So education itself I see it as a very powerful engine. It's just like an engine that drives, there are some engines they call heavy duty engine, and I see education as one of such. Is likened to be a heavy duty engine that drives other aspects of a nation, other heavy aspects, so that's politics, the political aspect of a nation, the technological advancement aspect of a nation, the economic aspect of a nation, the social aspect of the nation. Education actually drives and sustains every other aspect of a nation, because education is actually a very, very important tool for transformation within a nation. It is a very important tool for transformation within a nation, and that is why there is need for it to be purposefully structured, and not just purposefully structured, but over time it needs to be continuously improved in order for it to meet the need of an evolving society, because the society is evolving and therefore there is need for some evolution from time to time within the educational system. This is where educational reforms comes in, because in the 21st century many things are in play. There are many things that have improved, and our level of education has to meet up with the needs and demands of the 21st century. So in the 21st century, there is need to align educational reforms with national development, because it has in fact become a strategic imperative for governments and educators and policymakers worldwide to come up with reforms that would transform our educational systems, and also furthermore translate into national development. There is such a great need. So quickly, I would want to define what education reforms are, just for us to have a good idea and understanding of what education reforms are. Education reforms refer to deliberate and systematic changes in policies, deliberate changes in structures, deliberate changes in curriculum, and also intentional improvement in teaching methods, intentional improvement in governance, and also better funding models for educational systems. That's what educational reforms entail. I will take it again. Education reforms refer to deliberate and systematic changes in policies, structures, curriculum, teaching method, governance, and funding models of educational systems. So these reforms are initiated with the aim to improve the quality, also the relevance, accessibility, and equity of education. They help to improve the quality, the relevance, and accessibility, and the equity of education. Educational reforms help to make education more responsive to social needs. It helps to make education also more responsive to labor market demands, because one of the things we see more rampant today is that the people that are coming out of our institutions, graduating from institutions, a large percentage of them can't meet up with the needs or demands of the labor market. They don't have that quality, and it's actually because of the quality of our educational system. So there is need for more of that. So educational reforms aim to make education more responsive to societal needs, labor market demands, technological advancement, and global trends. So what then is national development? National development is the process of improving the economic well-being, the quality of life, security, and overall progress of a country's population. National development basically encompasses various aspects of a nation, such as industrialization, infrastructural growth, poverty reduction, access to quality healthcare, political stability, and also human capital development. These are the things that that are characteristics of national development. Improvement, in various aspects of the nation, including industrialization, infrastructure growth, poverty reduction, access to quality healthcare, political stability, and human capital development. So education plays a central and pivotal role in achieving these objectives. Education needs to be reformed. So education plays a critical role by also building a skilled and informed and also empowered citizenry. Building skilled, informed, and empowered citizens that are able to contribute immensely and positively to the overall national development agenda and goals of a nation. So quickly, I would want to just talk about some facts about developed countries and their educational system. Some facts about developed countries and their educational system. So number one fact is that developed countries have high literacy rates. So most developed countries generally have literacy rates above 95%, up to 95%. So those are some of the things for some countries in like Germany and also Singapore. These countries have high literacy rate. Even countries like Norway and Japan, they have, near universal literacy. Like almost all of their population are actually literate. So number one fact about developed countries is high literacy rate. Number two, compulsory education. There are some countries that have made it mandatory for a certain a certain demography of the education to pass of their population to participate intentionally in education. In some countries, between 14 and 18 years, education is mandatory. In countries like Germany and France, education is compulsory up to 16 years. So every child under the age of 16 is expected and mandated to be in school. And also, another fact is that developed countries invest in their education. There is government investment. Developed nations invest heavily in education. The countries like Norway, Sweden, and Finland, they spend over 8% of their GDP on education. Over 8% of their GDP on education. So another fact about developed countries is that their teachers are well trained. They ensure that their teachers are well trained and their teachers have the necessary and the requisite certifications and degrees before they can teach. Teachers in developed countries, they often have at least a bachelor's degree, and they go through rigorous trainings and certifications. Finland, for example, is known to require that all teachers must have a master's degree, and that is really great. All teachers must have a master's degree. And also, another key feature is their access to technology. Students in developed countries have better experience because they have access to technology. They have access to computers, to tablets, and also high-speed internet, which affords them the ability to do research, to get themselves informed, and also learn digitally. So countries like South Korea and Singapore, they infuse and integrate technology deeply into their learning process. Another key fact about developed countries is that they have a strong emphasis on equity and inclusion. Both males and females have equal opportunities to be educated. These countries, they work hard in ensuring that the educational inequality is reduced to the barest minimum. For example, an example of such countries, Finland. Finland has a system for tracking the number of students that access education. They ensure that students or children or individuals, irrespective of their status, irrespective of their class, irrespective of their gender, are able to access quality education irrespective of their socio-economic status. And also, developed countries have high global ranking. There are some countries like Japan, South Korea, Canada, Finland. They rank high global as per the quality of education. Countries like Germany also rank very high. The United Kingdom, United States of America, they have quite a high ranking in the quality of their education, and they also experience higher educational excellence. They also focus on innovation and research. Innovation and research is actually very key, because that's actually one of the key qualities of developed countries. They have the educational system provides the opportunity for people to explore and to make inventions, to come up with creative innovations. They do research, medical research, engineering research, technological researches. So all these things can only be available when the necessary reforms have been taken, and there is a good foundation for people that affords people the opportunity to do all this, basically. All right, so one of the things we have been trying to drive home, even from what we've been saying so far, is for us to understand that educational reforms have been pivotal in shaping the educational successes of developed countries, by addressing systemic challenges and aligning education with evolving societal needs. In fact, most of these developed countries, it wasn't as if they were there yet, but there was a need, there was a challenge, there was a pressing challenge, in fact, a national challenge, a challenge that was actually threatening their future as a nation. And in order for them to secure their future, they had to take some drastic decisions as per their educational system. They had to come up with reforms to strengthen their educational systems, because they know that these efforts would have a positive ripple effect on their on their quest for national development. So one of the things developed countries need to understand and need to address is the need to let them know, and for them to understand that their desire for national development is actually good, but are they willing to pay the price by investing financially, investing structurally, investing in teachers, investing in the educational system, by coming up with policies that would help them, that would create a better foundation for the years to come. So these reforms often aim to improve access, equality, quality and relevance of education through policy shifts, through curriculum development and structural changes. So these are the things that happen, to transform educational systems through policies. So it comes, in form of there are some countries that one of the major reforms that they had to carry out was training their teachers. There are some countries, some of the reforms they had to do was ensuring that education is available to everybody, irrespective of socioeconomic status. Some countries, it was because they were just coming back from war, and they need to have a plan to rebuild their country, and also to position their country once again globally. So some of all these things influence their decision to they understood that they have to start from the foundation. They have to start from the foundation, and one of the things that helps to strengthen the foundation is education. And they have to come up with policies, and these policies had to be in alignment with their goals. They were restructuring and transforming the educational systems in view of their national development goals. Where do they see themselves in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, even in the next 30, 50 years? And they had to start, putting conscious effort in the educational systems. So governments have also implemented reforms around the world. Governments of various nations have implemented reforms around the world. Some of the reforms was to integrate technology into classrooms, like digital classrooms, to come up with, to have modern infrastructure, new schools, new buildings, and also support inclusive education. And all this was able to ensure that, education was more engaging, and also to ensure that there are better learning environments for all students. All these things, developing countries, or some countries in the world that don't value education, or see some of these efforts as being unnecessary, as being not useful, and that is why they're still where they are. So countries that know where they are going to would understand that education is actually a pivotal aspect of their national development. So furthermore, education reforms have played a crucial role in ensuring that educational systems are adaptable and responsive to global trends. Yes, and also that reforms in higher education, such as universities and other tertiary institutions, actually fund and invest in researches. They have propelled all these universities to develop innovations, put their countries, their nations at the forefront of innovation. This is because the governments of these nations have invested so much in the education. There's funding. They have allocated their budget, they have allocated resources in their budget to education. They have restructured the educational system, better policies, better technologies, teacher training, and it's all in view, understanding of where they are right now, their current situation, and where they want to take, where they are actually going to, because they need a certain quality of citizens, a certain quality of people that would drive this development, that would drive national development. So they need to equip their citizens with the requisite skills and knowledge needed for them to participate and take the nation to where it needs to get to. And when we are talking about a nation, we're not just talking about the fiscal nation. The nation itself are the people in it. So if you want to improve a nation, if you want a nation to develop, it starts from developing the people in the nation. One of the ways you develop the people is by making sure they are educated, making sure they are conscious education, they are well informed, they are empowered, they are able to contribute. They are not a burden to the society. They are not a liability to the nation. So it is very, very important. So there must be a collaboration between educational stakeholders, including public and private sector individuals, and also other non-profit sector. Reforms, over time have ensured that education contributes meaningfully to national development, social mobility, and also economic competitiveness. So in essence, even as we draw today's edition to a close, consistent and forward-thinking reforms have been the engine behind sustained excellence and global leadership of developed countries in education. Next week, same time next week, we'll look at the need for education reforms, and we'll be taking a deep dive into education reforms we'll be taking three or more case studies. The first case study will be looking at Finland. Second case study will be looking at Rwanda. We'll also be looking at Singapore as number 3. And if time avails us, we could take a look at Germany, and also we could look at Japan. And next week we'll also be exploring another aspect of this focus, which is the role of education in driving national development. Today's edition was basically an introduction. From next week, we'll be doing a much deeper dive into the subject of educational reforms and its alignment with national development. So in conclusion, aligning educational reforms with national development is not only strategic, but it is essential for fostering sustainable growth. It is essential for promoting innovation, encouraging innovation, and also ensuring social progress. Education serves as the foundation upon which a nation's future is built. And many countries or many nations 30 years ago, they made some key decisions, within the educational system, which is yielding them today. So education serves as the foundation upon which a nation's future is built. It shapes human capital, it drives economic productivity, and also it helps to reinforce societal values. So to achieve meaningful development, education systems must be intentionally structured to address national goals. National goals such as reduction of poverty, technological advancement, job creation, and also ensuring civic responsibility. So by aligning curriculums, by training teachers, by coming up with better policies, by the government and private individuals investing in education, we are sure to to make progression and progressive advancement towards national development, and with educational reforms and educational structures put in place, nations and countries can unlock their full potentials and also the full potentials of their citizens, and also position their citizens competitively in the global landscape. All right, so this brings us to the end of today's edition of education reforms and aligning education reforms with national development. And please do well to join us here on YouTube next week Wednesday. We'll be live next week Wednesdays. Please do well to join us 5 p.m. West African time and 12 p.m. Eastern time as we bring you further perspective. So you could also send in your questions or your contributions across our social media platforms at Armourgate. We are on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on Instagram. So please do well to reach out to us. We look forward to having you same time, same platform next week, Thursday. Do have a beautiful week ahead. Bye for now.